中電控股2021年中期業績傳媒簡報會嘅網上直播。我哋中期業績嘅新聞稿同埋簡報資料已經喺今日嘅中午咧透過電郵發放咗俾各位嘅傳媒，同時亦都上載咗喺中電集團嘅網站。喺今日嘅簡報會之後咧，我哋會將再透過電郵向各位傳媒朋友發放管理層嘅照片嘅。首先啦，等我介紹一下今日出席嘅中電管理層。坐喺中間嘅係中電控股首席執行官藍凌志先生。坐喺藍凌志先生左手邊嘅係集團總監及中華電力副主席阮蘇少薇女士。而坐喺藍凌志先生右手邊嘅係中電控股有限公司財務總裁戴思力先生。我係中電集團公共事務副總監歐嘉琪。今日嘅簡報會係喺中電嘅總部裏邊進行，在座咁多位嘅管理層已經打咗新冠疫苗，而場內咧亦都做好咗防疫措施。今日嘅程序首先會由藍凌志先生致辭，跟住會由阮太用廣東話致辭，然後會係問答嘅環節。我哋安排咗兩種唔同嘅方式俾傳媒朋友發問。已經加入咗電話會議嘅記者朋友可以隨時撳星1輪候發問。至於其他冇參與電話會議嘅記者咧，亦都可以喺網上直播平台嘅提問方格入邊輸入你哋嘅問題。去到答問環節嘅時候，我哋會先回答電話會議嘅提問，之後會回答網上廣播平台嘅問題。而家我先將時間交俾藍凌志先生。Richard, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on the webcast today. I guess like many of you, I've been cheering for the Hong Kong Olympics team, and I wanted to offer my congratulations to all the medalists and all the athletes who have participated in the event. They have certainly been making us very proud. Now, coming back to our results for the first half of 2021, although we're experiencing one of the most challenging periods of our time, I'm pleased to say that our operations have remained resilient and our pathway towards a zero-carbon future is even more clearly defined. Overall, the group recorded operating earnings of 5.7 billion Hong Kong dollars, 7% lower than last year. Earnings from our Hong Kong business were robust and increased along with our investments. However, this only partially offset the impact of higher coal prices in China and challenging market conditions in Australia. Our total earnings were down 23.2% to $4.6 billion, mainly because we booked some one-off charges in our Australian business. The board has kept the second interim dividend consistent at 63 cents per share, in line with the first interim dividend of 2021 and the same as this time last year. During the first half of this year, we made good progress on our decarbonisation goals, and we delivered safe and reliable operations and customer services across our business. In Hong Kong, we continued to provide a highly reliable electricity supply while pushing ahead with major decarbonisation projects. The construction of the second highly efficient gas-fired generating unit at Black Point Power Station and the new offshore LNG terminal are progressing well. These projects contribute not only to Hong Kong's cleaner electricity supply, but also to enhancing energy security for decades to come. We're also upgrading our clean energy transmission system and further studying the feasibility of developing an offshore wind farm, which appears to be more viable thanks to technological advancements. Most importantly, we're working closely with the government on a roadmap for the city to become carbon neutral by 2050, which we will shoulder a key role in its delivery. The best solution is likely to incorporate a range of technologies, including greater generation from renewables right here in Hong Kong, importing clean energy from the mainland, and the potential introduction of green hydrogen as a fuel for local generation. As we pursue these decarbonisation goals, we're increasingly integrating our efforts in Hong Kong with the Greater Bay Area. We anticipate closer regional cooperation to bring clean energy from the Greater Bay Area to Hong Kong in the future. An example is the offshore wind opportunity, for which we will investigate the feasibility of further developments across the region. Leveraging our experience and our expertise in Hong Kong, we're also developing a range of customer-centric solutions that are transferable across the GBA. Across mainland China, operations were steady for the first half, but high coal prices impacted our thermal assets. Construction, meanwhile, began on CLP's first grid parity project in the country. The Jianan 3 wind farm in Jilin province will be built with an accompanying battery storage. In Australia, positive contributions from the customer segment partially offset the earnings decline from the energy business. During the period, we took significant steps to decarbonise our business and support Australia's energy transition. We announced the early closure of Yallourn Power Station and our commitments to a number of new projects, including one of the world's largest battery storage facilities in Victoria and Australia's first net zero emissions gas peaking plant at Tallawarra that's designed to also use green hydrogen. In Queensland, the Kidston Pump Storage Hydro Project has commenced construction, and Energy Australia will have the dispatch rights to it when it's completed in 2024. And in India, our focus remains on new zero-carbon investments in renewable generation and transmission assets. We commenced construction of our largest wind farm to date and anticipate completion of our acquisition of the KMTL transmission asset in the second half of the year. Looking ahead, we seek to provide our customers with a wide range of sustainable energy solutions. We'll be increasingly focused on energy infrastructure and energy as a service, building on our experience in innovation and new business models. The recent extreme climate events in mainland China, Europe, and the US have highlighted the need for urgent action. CLP will continue to decarbonise and digitalise our business, working closely with governments and the communities to accelerate the energy transition. Ahead of the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference to be held later this year, we look forward to releasing new science-based targets under our Climate Vision 2050. These are challenging yet exciting times. In our long heritage of 120 years, we've kept on evolving and transitioning, and yet the next 3 decades will be faster paced and require even greater agility and effort from CLP. I believe we're well placed for this next phase of transformation as we bring to life the true meaning of utility of the future. Thank you.
多謝 Richard， 跟住我嚟咧，我哋請阮太致辭嘅，唔該阮太。
各位午安，多謝大家參與今日嘅網上新聞發佈會。正當我哋經歷緊近年其中一段最具挑戰嘅日子，我好高興咧同大家匯報，我哋嘅營運咧繼續保持堅韌，邁向零碳未來嘅道路咧亦都更加明確。整體嚟講咧，集團嘅營運盈利咧係57億港元，較去年係下跌咗7%。香港業務盈利穩健，並受到投資帶動咧而增加。但係咧，只能夠部分咁抵消咗中國內地煤價高企同埋澳洲嚴峻市況嘅影響。總營運盈利下跌咗23.2%至到46億港元，主要係由於澳洲業務錄得一次性嘅支出。董事會維持第2期中期股息6毫3仙，同今年第1期同埋去年嘅同期一樣。今年上半年，我哋嘅減碳工作進度理想，同時提供安全可靠嘅營運同埋客戶服務。喺香港，我哋繼續提供高度可靠嘅電力服務，同時推進重要嘅減碳項目。龍鼓灘發電廠第2台嘅高效燃氣機組同埋海上液化天然氣接收站嘅工程進展順利。有關項目唔單止有幫助香港邁向更潔淨嘅能源，亦有幫助加強未來幾十年嘅能源供應穩定性。我哋亦都正係提升潔淨能源輸電專線項目，以及進一步研究發展離岸風場嘅可行性。科技進步令到離岸風場變得更加可為。更重要嘅係，我哋目前正係同香港政府就香港喺2050年前達至到碳中和嘅路線圖咧緊密合作。喺實踐減碳目標方面咧，我哋係擔當好重要嘅角色。我哋相信最佳嘅方法咧係結合一系列嘅技術，當中係包括喺香港使用更多可再生能源嘅發電，從內地咧輸入潔淨嘅能源，以及咧引入綠色氫能作為本地發電燃料嘅可行性。 喺實現有關減碳目標嘅同時咧，我哋亦都正係加強結合香港同埋大灣區嘅工作。我哋預期咧，透過更緊密嘅區域合作咧，將大灣區嘅潔淨能源輸入嚟香港。同樣地，我哋會探索喺區內進一步發展離岸風場嘅可行性。憑藉住我哋喺香港嘅經驗同埋專業知識，我哋係正係開發一系列以客戶為本嘅能源解決方案，應用喺大灣區。喺中國嘅內地，上半年我哋嘅營運表現係穩定，但係火電項目咧係受到煤價高企嘅影響。與此同時咧，中電喺內地第一個平價上網嘅項目咧已經開始動工。位於吉林省嘅乾安3期風場咧，將會安裝一個5兆瓦嘅電池儲能系統。喺澳洲，客戶業務貢獻係增加，抵消部分能源業務盈利下跌嘅影響。期內咧，我哋推進咗重要嘅措施，為業務減碳，並且咧支持澳洲能源轉型。我哋宣布雅洛恩電廠提早退役，亦都咧落成咗幾項新嘅計劃，包括喺維多利亞州建設全球其中一個最大規模嘅電池儲能設備，以及咧 Taiwan 電廠咧所建澳洲第一個淨零碳排放燃氣嘅電廠。我同時咧喺昆士蘭州 Keystone 抽水蓄能水電喺印度，我哋繼續以可再生能源發電同埋輸電資產嘅零碳投資項目為重點。我哋開始興建集團旗下現時規模最大嘅風場，並且咧預計喺今年下半年咧完成收購 KMTL 輸電項目。展望未來咧，我哋係會致力為客戶提供多元化又可持續能源解決嘅方案。憑住我哋喺創新同埋新商業模式方面嘅經驗咧，我哋會更為專注能源基建設施同埋能源服務一體化嘅策略。近嚟中國內地、歐洲同埋美國咧都分別出現咗一啲極端天氣嘅事件，凸顯出咧採取行動嘅迫切性。中電咧會繼續透過減碳同埋業務數碼化，同政府、客戶以及社群咧緊密咁合作，加速能源嘅轉型。第26屆聯合國氣候變化大會咧將會喺今年稍後嘅時間舉行。我哋期望咧可以喺大會舉行之前咧公佈中電集團氣候願景2050，根據科學基礎嘅新減碳目標。呢一個係既具挑戰同埋令人咧期待嘅時代。喺中電120年嚟悠久嘅歷史之中咧，我哋不斷咁變革同埋轉型。事實上，未來30年嘅發展步伐咧，一定係會更加快。中電嘅團體咧，亦都必須比以往咧任何嘅時候咧，都要更加靈活、更加努力。我相信我哋係已經為下一個階段嘅變革進程咧做好咗準備，充分發揮新世代公用事業嘅真正意義。多謝大家，
唔該晒阮太。跟住落嚟咧就會係答問嘅環節。已經加入咗電話會議嘅記者朋友可以隨時撳星1輪候發問。至於其他冇參與電話會議嘅記者，亦都可以喺網上直播平台嘅提問方格入邊咧輸入你哋嘅問題。我哋而家會先回答電話會議嘅提問。由於時間嘅關係，每位記者最多可以發問2條問題。喺我讀出咗你哋嘅傳媒機構同埋姓名之後，記者就可以直接咧透過電話發問㗎喇。好，而家落嚟我哋聽下第一條問題先。喺線上面嘅係 Australian Financial Review 嘅 Angela。Hi Angela。
Yes.
Hi, you can go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I've got a question about the Australian conditions, please. I don't think there was any mention of impairment in the Australian portfolio in your release, but I'm interested in what you can say about the impact of the weaker wholesale power prices and higher fuel costs on the value and profitability of your Australian coal power generators. And I'd note that some other generators have recently written down power plants recently due to those factors.
Okay, thank you for the question, Angela. Richard?
Thank you. Thanks, Angela. We did not make any impairments on our Australia business. We did have some exceptional items which were in relation to settlement of a litigation and also some provision of costs to repair the area around our Yallourn power station, which suffered some extensive, very torrential rain back in June. So just for clarity, no impairments in our Australia business. Yes, you're right. The wholesale prices have been softer, certainly in the first half of this year, and that has reflected in our earnings. We have seen the energy business has been weaker in the first half, but that's been partially offset by a stronger performance in our customer segment. So it is an area we do need to keep in mind as Australia does go through its energy transition. We are seeing more renewable energy coming into the system, and clearly that will see further pressure on wholesale prices. In the case of our Yallourn power station, we have agreed with the Victorian government on a timetable for closure. And part of that is making sure that we have reliable operations up until the point of closure, and that the plant can still be economically viable up to the day that it closes. And it's a comprehensive suite of issues that we need to address in the energy transition, including reskilling and retraining the local community, and also making sure that there is sufficient investment in replacement capacity, which in the case of Yallourn will be in the form of a very large battery storage facility.
Okay, thank you, Richard. 下一條問題係嚟自 Nikkei 嘅Kanji Kawase 生。
Hi, yes. Hi, this is Kenji from Nikkei.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, thank you very much. My first question is with regard to the nuclear power plant safety issue. Your nuclear power plants in China have not, I don't think, have any problems, but there are problems that are popping up in other nuclear power plants run by other companies in Guangdong province. And with regard to the safety procedures and the safety situation of the nuclear power plant, I think it's a very big concern for people living here in Hong Kong. So would you please, Mr. Lancaster, would you give us your take on the situation that you see in China now and the nuclear safety going forward? That's my first question. And my second question is with regard to your decarbonization roadmap. I understand the roadmap you explained to us today as well. Would you please update us in more details? And whether in Hong Kong the target of decarbonization is 2050, but in China it's 2060. And the reliance on coal is much heavier in China, and you buy coal and you fuel your plant in coal as well. Would you please elaborate on not only on the Hong Kong decarbonization plan, but also in your operation in China as well? And also, if you can mention in your other operations as well in terms of decarbonization roadmap. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Kenji. And I jumped in before Vivian invited me, but I'll answer those questions. Firstly, I think the comment that you were referring to about nuclear power stations was in relation to the Taishan power plant. We don't have any ownership or any involvement in the Taishan plant. We are involved in two plants, Daya Bay and also Yangjiang. And there is, for those plants that we are involved with, there is a very clear communication, and we have a very long-established protocol. I think the issue around Taishan was clarified by the Ministry of Ecology and Environment. They made quite a detailed announcement, so that's where I refer you to any information about Taishan. In relation to decarbonisation, yes, you're absolutely right that China has set a decarbonisation target by 2060, and the Hong Kong government has announced a decarbonisation target by 2050, which is 10 years earlier. In some respects, Hong Kong doesn't have as much industrial capacity as mainland China. We have more of a service-based economy, and so there's more of a concentration of carbon emissions around the electricity sector in Hong Kong, simply because there's no other major industry here. So it is a more straightforward issue for the Hong Kong government to decarbonise Hong Kong's economy. If you think that 65% of Hong Kong's carbon emissions come from the power generation sector and another 18% come from transportation, if you can decarbonise the power sector and make that available to the transportation sector, there's around 83% of Hong Kong's carbon emissions are solved just in those two initiatives. In China, you have a much more diverse economy. You're absolutely right, it is more dependent on coal today than Hong Kong is, and it has further to go. So it's not unreasonable to assume that China will take a little bit longer than Hong Kong. In terms of CLP's role, we have been decarbonising our portfolio since we first issued our Climate Vision 2050 back in 2007. So if you look at our results today, almost all of our earnings are concentrated around the clean energy sector, which is renewables and nuclear power. So we are already well advanced on our journey to decarbonise our portfolio in mainland China. We're working very closely with the Hong Kong government to agree a plan on decarbonising Hong Kong. And in Australia, we're heavily investing in the energy transition, which we see as investing in the flexible capacity that will be needed to support more renewables coming into the system. Equally, in India, we are investing in renewable energy and transmission lines there, which will support the energy transition for India's economy.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. 跟住落嚟，我哋回答網上平台嘅提問啦。第一條兩條問題嚟自明報嘅陳偉新嘅，咁我先讀出第一條先。第一條問題係 Will CLP try to make more big purchases of renewable energy? Has CLP set any target for that? How about hydrogen? Will CLP do more hydrogen-driven energy projects? Richard, do you want to take this one?
Absolutely. We are committed to investing in renewable energy. In Hong Kong, we have initiated a feed-in tariff where we buy renewable energy from our customers who invest in solar panels on their homes and also large factories, schools. So that's one way that we can support renewable energy development in Hong Kong. We are working towards a plan to decarbonise our portfolio in Hong Kong, which will include more renewable energy. And one prospect that we have in Hong Kong is offshore wind. So that's a very interesting technology that we're looking at the moment. In terms of hydrogen, we believe that hydrogen will be a carbon-free way of producing firm capacity, energy that you can count on when you need it. And all of the facilities that we're building today, which will be fueled initially on natural gas, will all be built with a view to the future and the ability to use hydrogen in place of natural gas when that becomes available.
Okay. 下一條明報嘅問題係 There are many opportunities in the Greater Bay Area. What kinds of opportunities is CLP looking into? Will they involve a lot of investment? And how much investment does CLP plan to make?
We are very excited about the opportunities in the Greater Bay Area. Our business has been connected with the Greater Bay since 1979 when we first built an electrical transmission line that would enable us to supply energy in those days to Guangdong province. So we are very well connected with the Greater Bay Area. There is a need in every economy around the world, there is a need to decarbonize. And so investments will be needed and careful management of that energy transition is going to be needed. And we believe that that represents opportunities for electricity companies such as ours. There's also an area of growing interest in helping customers better manage their energy. And whether you are an industrial user or a large commercial user, if you can better manage your energy use, you can not only reduce the cost of running your business, but also help decarbonize that business. So we see opportunities in working with our customers in providing energy more as a service than just as a commodity. And it's those services that we believe will have value to our customers.
Thank you, Richard. 跟住落嚟係星島嘅 Tony Chow 都係有兩條問題嘅，我問第一條先。To support the Hong Kong government's plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, what is the estimated capex to upgrade your equipment? Will COP seek to re-enhance your permitted return?
There is clearly a need for investment to decarbonize. And essentially what we need to do is to replace the infrastructure that we currently use to produce electricity with carbon-free forms of electricity generation. And clearly investment will be needed. The good news is that this will be spread out over 30 years, and these are assets which have a very long life. So when you spread that cost out over 30 years, it will have much less impact on electricity prices than people may fear. So investment is needed. It will be a steady and staged investment. This will not all be done in one big bang. It will be done in a steady stream of investments over the next 30 years.
Okay. 星島嘅下一條問題係 In China, with the recent shortage of power supply under the high fuel prices, will electricity profitability continue to be under pressure in the second half of this year?
We are seeing inflation. We are seeing quite substantial rises in fuel costs generally as the economy starts to pick up from COVID and economic activity is building up. So we are seeing fuel prices in particular coming under quite substantial pressure. This has happened really in the first half of this year. We remain to see what effects that will have once supply picks up, and that may relieve some of the pressure on prices. But this is something that we will need to watch and we will need to manage carefully.
Okay. 跟住落嚟係South China Morning Post 嘅 Eric Ng 嘅問題。第一條問題係 What is the progress on the feasibility study of the offshore wind farm in Hong Kong? When may the findings be ready?
We have studied offshore wind in Hong Kong back in 2007 and 2008. And we established at that time that offshore wind was environmentally feasible, it was technically feasible, but at the time the technology was very expensive, and so economically it wasn't viable. Today, the cost of offshore wind technology has come down substantially, and we can now generate the same capacity of wind farm using much bigger machines and fewer of them, which does reduce the cost substantially. So we believe that the economic cost will now be viable. We will need to submit a plan as part of our development plan to the Hong Kong government for review and approval. And what we're assessing at the moment is the viability with larger machines and fewer of them. We think the technology is much more mature than it was in 2007, and the cost has come down considerably. And we believe that it is a very promising technology that we can adopt.
Okay. 下一條問題 How much has CLP invested in cybersecurity enhancement tools and solutions? Can you describe the risks that you faced on this front?
That's a very important question. Cybersecurity is a growing threat to all businesses all over the world. So our investment has been in our people, in our capabilities, and we have strengthened considerably our ability to not only prevent cyber attacks, but also to understand what's happening in our operations and to be able to respond to any threat. So our investment has been in our expertise, in our capabilities and our people.
Thank you. 下一條問題係Celine Gee 嘅問題，第一條。As mentioned in the press release, CLP is looking at investments in Southeast Asia and Taiwan. Any asset classes or markets in particular would you be looking at? Would CLP prefer greenfield investment or brownfield purchases?
We are looking at renewable energy opportunities. An area of interest to us in Southeast Asia has always been Vietnam. We do not believe that coal-fired projects are the way to go for Vietnam, but we do think that there are good opportunities for renewable energy in Vietnam. So that has been the area that we are currently focused on. We do have an operation in Taiwan, and we have been working with our partners there to look at opportunities in renewable energy, but so far those have not shown any fruit.
Thank you. 下一條 In terms of future investments in mainland China, will CLP mainly focus on on-grid wind or solar or any new green assets in the region?
Our interest in mainland China is in clean energy generally. So we are not only interested in the mainstream technologies, which would see as onshore wind, solar, hydroelectricity. Those are our current technologies. We also have nuclear power, which is carbon-free, and we are open to further investments in nuclear power. We are also looking at offshore wind as well. If this works for us in Hong Kong, it could work well for us in the region generally. And if you think about an offshore wind farm, the boundaries on the ocean are not as challenging as boundaries on the land. So when you think about scale, the more scale that you have, the better the economics. So just by looking a little bit outside of Hong Kong's waters, we could potentially increase the scale and therefore improve the economics of offshore wind. So those are the main areas that we're focusing on.
Thank you. 下一條問題係東方嘅Kimmy Poon 問題係中文嘅請翻譯啊。澳洲業務方面 ，Tallawarra 嘅新發電廠咧只有300個兆瓦，另一個抽水蓄能水電項目咧只有250個兆瓦。請問足唔足夠代表雅洛恩電廠退役所帶嚟嘅影響呢？ 我哋請可以我讀多一次啊！我哋等翻譯可以再講多次。問題係澳洲業務方面 ，Tallawarra 嘅新發電廠只係有300個兆瓦，另一個抽水蓄能水電項目咧，亦都只有250個兆瓦。請問足唔足夠代替雅洛恩電廠退役所帶嚟嘅影響呢？
Thank you for the question. Apologies, I didn't have my earpiece in. Yes, you're right. If you add up the megawatts of storage, it doesn't match the size of an existing power station. Our business in Australia is primarily a retail business where we need to make sure that we're delivering reliable and adequate energy to our customers. And we do that through a combination of our own plants, generating plants, as well as electricity that we buy from the market. So with a storage facility, and both our pumped hydro storage and batteries are ways of storing energy, we have the opportunity to buy energy when prices are low and sell that energy when prices are high, so that we can keep the cost of energy low for our customers. When we combine that with gas capacity that means that we've now got all the tools that we need to supply all of the electricity we need for our customers, along with purchases of renewable energy from wind and solar plants, some of which are solar plants that are owned by our customers with rooftop solar. So our business for the future will be very different to the business today, where we generate electricity centrally at generating plants and supply that in a one way to our customers. So what we're building is a portfolio of assets that will enable us to meet our customers' needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the most cost-effective way. And what we're seeing as the first examples of building our portfolio.
OK， 下一條問題係關於香港嘅電價嘅，或者可以請係阮太作答。問題係嚟自Commercial Daily 嘅 Alex Kwong。問題係 What are the key drivers for sale of electricity in Hong Kong？ 請阮太幫你答。
好啊。中文定英文啊？
中文啦，中文。
我哋今年嗰個香港嗰個售電量咧，係比去年同期係增加咗大概4.4%。咁咧就主要咧係嗰個天氣啦有啲關係啦，因為我哋1月嘅時候咧天氣比較涼啦，到3月、5月份咧天氣咧就係比較熱嘅。咁亦都咧今年咧嗰個經濟咧亦都係比去年咧係好一啲，即係嗰個疫情嗰個情況亦都舒緩咗一啲。咁所以咧，我哋而家睇咧今年嗰個電力嘅增長咧，我哋都係有信心嘅。
好啊，唔該，阮太。跟住呢條問題，我請Richard 幫我哋作答啊，關於台灣、澳洲同埋印度㗎。How do you think the pandemic in Taiwan, Australia, and India will affect the sale of electricity in the second half?
Generally, we've found that in the pandemic, demand for electricity has been reasonably stable. The challenge for the electricity industry during the COVID pandemic has been making sure that operations are reliable and that the lights stay on. But demand for electricity has shifted from the commercial sector to homes as people have been working from homes. And we've found that some areas of the industrial economy have been in higher demand than others. So overall, the demand for electricity has been broadly consistent. What we're now seeing is an increase as some economies start to kickstart and get back into gear. We are seeing some increases in electricity demand. Generally speaking, where you have a recovery from the pandemic, you will see an uptick in the electricity demand. But electricity is also impacted by the weather. And as we've seen in Hong Kong, just with the hotter weather that we've seen in the first half of this year, that has increased sales of electricity, particularly in the hotter months.
Okay. 下一條問題係中文嘅 ，maybe Richard put on your earpiece。下一條問題係嚟自商台嘅 Whole Lamb， 問題係中電今年120週年會唔會派發特別息呢？
I am asked that question a lot, and the board have deliberated, and we have announced our second interim dividend, but there are no plans for a special dividend for the 120th anniversary. Our 120th anniversary is really about communication, and it's about looking over 120 years of a company's history, all the ups and downs, the crises that we've come through, and to reflect that over 120 years, there have been very tough times, very challenging times, but we have always come through that with strength, and that is really the message of our 120th anniversary.
Thank you, Richard. 下一條係關於 hydrogen 嘅問題，我哋請阮太幫我哋作答啊。燃氣發電基建轉型至使用綠色氫氣， 預計幾時會推出呢？成本會唔會增加同埋轉嫁俾市民呢？請遠睇。
喺氫氣呢一個使用喺我哋香港嘅發電方面咧，我哋預計唔會係短期嘅。中短期咧，政府嗰個減碳嗰個目標咧，我哋係認為咧會係主要咧係靠我哋香港發展更多嘅可再生能源啦，同埋咧係同區域嘅合作啦，係引入一啲乾淨嘅能源。咁氫氣嗰方面咧，呢一個嘅技術咧，其實而家全球咧都係好積極咁樣希望去發展嘅。咁我哋亦都有好多，我哋都密切留意咧唔同嘅國家咧喺一啲嘅測試嘅工程啊，咁樣睇下呢一個氫能咧喺發電嗰方面嘅可行性啦。好關鍵嘅咧係佢整個供應鏈嘅建立啦，同埋嗰個經濟效益。咁我哋唔相信喺未來10年之內咧，會係達至到我哋香港可以用到氫能嘅時間表。應該咧會係最快咧都會喺30年代嘅末啦，或者係40年代嘅情況咧，先至會係運用到呢個氫能嘅。亦都係要睇一睇全球喺呢一方面嗰個技術嘅發展。
好啊，唔該遠太。跟住落嚟係明報嘅陳偉新。問題係繼瑰麗酒店向中電採購更多可再生能源，請問今年咧喺呢一方面會唔會有更大嘅採購係喺談判之中嘅呢？遠睇。
好啊。我哋喺可再生能源嘅證書嗰方面咧，其實我哋都一路好大力咁樣去推展俾我哋嘅客戶啦。咁隨住好多客戶咧對於減碳嘅意識提高咧，我哋睇到咧喺呢一方面嘅需求咧係日益有增加嘅。咁我哋其實除咗瑰麗酒店之外咧，亦都有其他嘅，譬如恒生銀行一啲其他嘅銀行咧，其實都係有同我哋係有買我哋呢啲再生能源嘅證書嘅。咁我哋希望喺呢一方面咧，能夠得到更多嘅客戶啦嘅支持咧，能夠將我哋大家咧同步咧係向呢個減碳嘅目標咧再推進嘅。
好。最後一條啦，都係關於香港嘅問題，或者請阿遠太幫我哋答下。呢條問題係嚟自東方嘅 Kimmy Poon， 佢話之前曾經提及過中電同埋港燈增加合作去推動碳中和。請問會係邊一方面嘅合作呢？有冇最新嘅進展呢？
其實中電同港燈咧喺各方面咧多年嚟都係有適當嘅時候咧，我哋都係會合作嘅。最好嘅例子咧就係我哋而家大家一齊興建呢一個海上嘅液化天然氣接收站啦。咁咧就將來嘅天然氣咧都會係分別咧係送到我哋中電同埋港燈嘅電廠嘅。咁喺大型嘅基建項目咧，尤其是如果係有區域性嘅合作咧，如果能夠係兩間電力公司係有呢個協同效應嘅時候咧，得到政府嘅支持咧，我哋係保持開放嘅態度去尋求一啲合作嘅空間嘅。
好啊，唔該晒。咁今日嘅傳媒簡報會咧嚟到呢度咧正式結束啦。如果大家有任何嘅問題，可以睇翻新聞稿上邊嘅傳媒查詢資料咧，聯絡翻我哋嘅。多謝晒大家嘅參與，拜拜。